Hello. Today we are exploring how to wind a center pole ball by hand. So you can see on the screen here, I've got a ball of yarn that's kind of collapsing a bit. This one actually was a center pole ball I made before, but I made a project. If you've seen my Jacob's Ladder video, I've just ripped that out. And now I need to rewind this into a more stable ball before I can put it away. So I've got my end here. Now this isn't going to end up being a very big ball. So the first thing we need to do is choose what fingers we're going to use to wrap around. Now, guessing is good enough. Close enough is close enough. You just want to be in the ballpark. So I think what I'm going to do for this ball, given how big it was, and I don't think I've actually used up any of the yarn from this, I'm going to use my pointer finger and my pinky to wrap around. Now, if I was winding a full ball, like this is Caron Simply Soft, if it was the entire ball that's 315 yards, I would use my thumb and pinky and I'd hold them as wide apart as possible. For this one though, it's smaller, so we'll just use these two. Often I will use just these two, because that's how much yarn I have left over. So the ring finger and the pointer finger. So first you need to find your end, and you want to have the end dangling free. Nice long end dangling free. And we're going to hold that with our thumb because we're not using it today. If you are using your thumb and your pinky, just be very careful. You never want to lose this end. Okay? So I'm going to go in a figure 8 pattern around my pinky and my pointer finger. My pinky, my pointer finger. Okay. As you get better at this, you can go much faster, but the key to all of this is make sure you never lose this end. Okay, so when I first learned how to do this, I thought, there we go, that's good enough. This is not enough. This is going to be too floppy if I take it off. It's not going to be a stable center. We need to do easily twice this much. Just moving my ball aside so that I have more pull for it. But I am pulling straight from the ball now. I've used up the project I frogged. There, that's a much better center. You could keep going if you wanted to. So I'm going to carefully move this off of my fingers. I'm going to grab the middle. Okay, make sure your end is free. Now I'm going to place my hands, so my thumb and one of my fingers is beside the ball. And then I'm going to wrap around my fingers. Try to make sure you wrap over that first end, just to keep it in place. Now the reason I have my fingers involved here is I don't want to wrap too tightly. If you wrap too tightly, you will end up stretching your yarn, even if you don't think your yarn is particularly stretchy. And when you stretch it, the gauge of the yarn will change. It'll get thinner, and it'll also get kind of weird. It'll get like limp, depending on the yarn. But I've had bulky yarns, like super bulky yarns, get down to like a fat worsted from yarn that was donated to charity. Okay, that's enough for that. Now I'm going to take my fingers out and put them sort of on an angle around this middle part. Don't squeeze it too much. And now I'm going to go at an angle like this. And you can see my first end still hanging out. I got my fingers in there to keep everything nice and loose. And we're going to put a good amount on there. Okay, and carefully take your fingers out. Then you're going to put them parallel to what you just wrapped. Again, try not to squish too much. And I'm going to go the opposite way. It's tricky, just keep that end out. That's a decent start to the ball. Now we're going to go horizontally, perpendicular to our initial that we wrapped around our fingers. Okay, now I'm not going to put my finger in there, but I'm still going to stay as loose as possible. If you have a hard time staying loose at this stage, you see my thumb's still under there a bit, put your fingers in. It gets harder as the ball gets bigger, so you might only be able to put them on one side, but really practice being loose. At this point, you're really focusing on not compressing that middle part too much. Okay, now I'm going to go diagonally again. You can see where our first two diagonals are. So I'm going to turn the ball like this so that I'm going over this part like this, right? Now I usually, if you saw that with my finger, I usually poke this out of the way if needed. But you know, it doesn't make a huge difference. First couple of pulls on this ball might get a little tricky, but it shouldn't tangle the yarn. Just use gravity. All right, I'm going to go perpendicular to that now, keeping this end out. Okay, now I'm going to go this way again. And basically just repeat those 3 directions until you run out of yarn, which I almost am. Okay, we have our 2 going this way, so now I want to go over it like that. And you see I'm not putting as much on the further out in the ball that I get. And that just keeps it from unraveling as much. Oh, you can see I'm almost out of yarn there. Now I prefer to end going this way, perpendicular to the original line, but it really doesn't matter. I just think this looks nicer. Okay, so I've got my end now. This is the outside end. My inside end still hanging out here in my hand. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this back a bit. I'm going to put a finger under here, right? Pull the end around, and then I'm going to tuck it under. Give a little tug, not too tight, just to hold it in place. So now we have a hand wound center pole ball. Now, these are sticking out the end, doesn't matter. If it bothers you though, you can just shove that in there. I probably could have gotten around with winding around the middle, or the ring finger and the pointer finger, but yeah. So now we have our center pull, and it pulls out just fine. Thanks for watching.